Now, when our first guest joined us on the programme earlier this year to talk about getting women on the waves with her This Girl Can sailing weekend, we also found out that while crossing the Atlantic for the second time, she taught herself celestial navigation and mastered it. So she's clearly not someone who shies away from a challenge, which is perhaps why we shouldn't be surprised that in July, Jenni Kneale completed another challenge. And Jenni, as we mentioned before, this challenge has led to you being a first female in something. Just explain more.
So I'm now the first female coxswain for the Isle of Man with the RNLI. And the fourth in the whole of the RNLI. I believe I found out yesterday there are only 4 female coxswains on all-weather lifeboats.
Wow, that is such an achievement. So just explain them for those who don't know, and clearly I must be one of those, having pronounced it so incorrectly yesterday. What actually does a coxswain do then?
So the coxswain's role is basically to take overall charge of the boat when we go on an exercise or when you go out on a shout. So it's a big step up in the level of responsibility. So as a crew, you're just like, okay, we're the crew, let's go, we follow, we do what we're told, we just want to do the best job we can do. And then you take that step up to coxswain and go, okay, now I'm in charge of the boat and all the people on it and the people that we're trying to help. And there's a lot more, certainly a lot more going on, I think, at that end of the boat.
Yeah, definitely. That's a huge change in responsibility. How have you sort of found that over the last few weeks since you took charge, as it were?
I think I still find the concept of it quite daunting, that I can actually now take a boat out in the middle of the Irish Sea at night to help somebody in all of the circumstances that everyone else is going home in. I think it's probably normal to be a bit daunted by that thought, I think.
But then your background, because I remember when you were with us last time, you were talking about the fact that on your last crossing with the Atlantic, you turned up to the boat and you thought someone else was going to be skippering it, and you ended up skippering that boat across the Atlantic, didn't you?
Yeah, that's right. And to be honest, that gave me a huge confidence boost coming back to do the coxswain thing, because I was looking at it going, right, well, I got the boat from the Canaries to Antigua, so I should be able to get a boat around our local patch and back home again safely. And having done that certainly gave me the boost to go, right, yeah, I can finish this assessment. I can do this final bit of the thing.
And as far as sort of the maritime world is concerned, is that something that you've always been interested in?
I've been brought up in the maritime world. I'm kind of following in my dad's footsteps in the RNLI route, in that he was the full-time coxswain on PSM Lifeboat and he retired last year from that post. So I've always had the sea as an influence on both sides of my family. And yeah, it's sort of following what my dad did, really.
Yeah, when it's in your blood like that, you must have a good stomach for the high seas.
Yeah, I've had a couple of instances of seasickness, but most of the time, if you're busy, you kind of forget about it. You've got other things to think about.
Something you can't really suffer from in the job that you're doing, I suppose.
No, although some of us do sometimes. But yeah, most of the time, you've got something else on your mind. You're busy, you're not thinking about that.
So why do you think then, you said that you're, the first on the Isle of Man in the RNLI, but only 4 women previously coxswains within the RNLI. Why do you think it is something there aren't many more women involved with?
I really don't know. I think traditionally the RNLI has been a very male-dominated organisation from its foundings here. Sir William Hillary back in 1824, and back in those days, men were needed with arms of steel to row the boats or sail the boats to the casualties. But in this day and age now, the lifeboats are so much more modern, the equipment's modern, and it's not a case of being the strongest person to go and row a boat. Actually, there's roles for everybody on the boat. The equipment makes life easier, and so there's more chance for anybody to get involved, I think, on the lifeboats now. But historically, it has been a very male-dominated environment.
So on the island, what are the numbers like? Because there are some women in the RNLI, obviously, on the island. Do you have any idea of the sort of numbers?
The average, I think 10% of lifeboat crew are female, so that means on average we've got 2 girls on each station on the Isle of Man. Out of 20 crew for each station, it's not a huge amount. There's room for more.
I was going to say, how much has that grown over the years?
It was interesting. I was talking to somebody who says Ireland actually have the largest percentage of female crew. They have 12% female crew in Ireland, and a lot of females tend to be the inshore lifeboat helms. So Portsmouth Lifeboat, we've got 2 boats. We've got the all-weather boat that will go out, big shouts out to sea, and then we've got the D-class, the inshore lifeboat. So that tends to do shorter shouts, more coastal shouts. And there's 136 female helms for the inshore lifeboats across the RNLI, but only 4 on the all-weather boats. And actually there was one boat launched in Ireland. It was a D-class, so there's only 3 crew members on a D-class, but that was the first all-female lifeboat launch, was off the Irish coast a few years ago. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. And how long have you actually been involved? Do you remember the first time you went out on a call?
I've been on the boat since 2005, and I do remember the first call we went out onto, and actually that was one of the moments we dropped the mooring and we sat off the end of the breakwater in Portsmouth. It was night. It was a rough night, but we sat stationary with the boat lolling around while we were waiting for instructions, and it was in those few moments I'm thinking, actually, I feel a little bit green here.
I mean, it is incredible the work you do, as you alluded to just earlier, you know, when lots of people are coming in off the seas because the weather has really turned and got very bad. You and the team very often have to be going out in those circumstances. How do you sort of deal with that side of it?
To be honest, you don't think about it until it's happening, and by then it's too late. You're already in the thick of it. I mean, more often than not, the pager goes when you least want it to go, so that's usually in the middle of the night when you're fast asleep, tucked up in bed in the most grimmest conditions in the winter. Pretty much guaranteed that you'll end up out in that weather, and normally you go from asleep to, there's the pager, to in the car, to on the boat, and by the time you're waking up going, okay, I'm on a lifeboat in the middle of the night.
I suppose it all happens so quickly, so there's no time to think about it.
Because our response time, the RNLI aim for a 10-minute from pager to launch time.
Wow.
And Portsmouth Lifeboat, we're just below average at 9 minutes from the pager going to the boat being off the mooring and on its way. And again, the RNLI aim to respond to any casualty within 10 miles of the coast within 30 minutes. And last year they were 90% success rate on that target. So there's not a lot of time. Everything happens quite quickly, yeah.
Do you have to live, if you're part of the crew, within a certain distance from the station?
I think the furthest crew member from our station in Portsmouth lives in Colby, and we've got some that work in Castletown that during the day will make it to the shout. So while it helps to live in close proximity, I live in Port Erin, but I'm on Portsmouth Lifeboat. We're also really, really stuck for crew that are available during the day. So actually, if there's people around that work in Port Erin or in Portsmouth or in Colby during the day that could come and be daytime crew, we'd really like to hear from those people, even if they don't live in the village at night. We'd really, really like to hear from people like that.
So if someone is listening and thinks that they could do that, who should they get in touch with?
Come and see us on Lifeboat Day on Sunday, Portsmouth Breakwater, or otherwise contact the boathouse, or find us through the Facebook page as well. But yeah, we're pretty easy to find. Come find us, tell us you want to come boating, and we'll take you out. And you don't have to have any maritime background to do this at all. Traditionally, it used to be lifeboat crews did come from maritime background. These days, the RNLI have got a competency-based training programme that we can take novices who've never been on a boat before and train them up to be lifeboat crew. So you don't have to have any maritime background at all. The only thing you have to be is over 17 years of old, and you can come and join us.
And you mentioned before, you were talking about some of the really difficult conditions that you sometimes get called out in. But, you know, we've had fabulous weather recently, and there's still call-outs because, of course, it can be something as simple as your engine breaking down, can't it?
Yeah, indeed. We've had quite a busy summer relatively this year, and you're quite right, the weather has been nice. So most of our things, we've had a boat run aground in Portsmouth. They'd come in from Wales and misjudged it on their way in. Another boat broke its moorings. There was a yacht in distress off Bradda that we went to. Motorboats breaking down that we've towed in. So yeah, the shouts have been on a different level to perhaps the middle of the night in the winter, but we've certainly had a busy summer.
And I think as well, there's also, I noticed something on the news this morning which sort of all ties in, I suppose, that it's not just about boats either, because recently there's been so many sort of kids getting in the sea trying to cool off in the heat and everything. And one thing that it really needs hammering home, I think, and is something that, you know, really needs to be taught in schools, I don't know, it may well be, so I'll have to check on that, but that idea of sort of cold shock and how you think, oh, it's really hot outside, therefore it's probably okay for me to get in the sea. It's not, is it?
No, you're absolutely correct. And the words you've used there, cold shock, it's a known killer. In that if you fall into cold water, your body has a gasp reflex. You will breathe in whether you want to or not, and it's that circumstance where all of a sudden you've had that gasp reflex, you've ended up in cold water, lots of physiological things happen within the body, and it's a really difficult situation to get out of, no matter how strong a swimmer you are as well, and it can happen to anybody. It is a worry.
Yeah, absolutely. When you think of like last night, for example, not a particularly hot day, but it was really sort of clammy, and we were out on the headlands exercising, and we were all saying, oh, wouldn't it be lovely, because we were so so hot and sticky to jump into the water. But like you say, that actually could be very dangerous. Is there, enough education about that, do you think, or could more be done to sort of educate youngsters particularly, but everybody actually, of those dangers?
I think, and we were talking about this last time I was here, about the fact that we do live on an island and perhaps there should be some kind of educational programme within the schools. The RNLI do a lot of community support and community education as well. And in fact, if you don't want to be lifeboat crew, there's roles for people to come and get involved with education, community support and fundraising as well. So we're always looking for people to get involved, and it would be great to roll out a full educational programme through the RNLI into the schools on the island. It would be really, really good.
And when you were with us last time, we were talking about This Girl Can, which was your sort of another event where you were getting women out on the waves and educating them about getting out sailing. How did it go?
That was a superb weekend. The weather gave us the best it could. We had 11 girls on a start racing weekend, so 11 teenagers, and I think we've got some new squad sailors from that. And then we had loads of women out, dinghy sailing taster sessions and powerboat taster sessions. We were blasting up to Kneale and back down in the rib, letting people take the helm and just watching the grins on people's faces, and people seeing the island's coastline from the sea who don't or never see it from that angle, and you just sit there and watch them open mouthed, just taking in this beautiful vista, and it was incredible. It was really good.
It is so special. I was really lucky. I was out on Friday night with Karen from Adventures Experiences, and we took the kayaks around to the Calf and went around the back of the Calf looking at the drinking dragon, and it is like you're in a whole different world, isn't it?
Yeah.
And especially when you've got sort of seals bobbing around all over the place, and there's something special about being on the sea, isn't there?
And certainly around here we're so lucky. I mean, this year the basking sharks, we had 100 dolphins in Port Erin. Like, why do we need to go anywhere? It's 22 degrees outside, there's dolphins in the bay. We live in the best place in the world.
I still haven't seen them. I don't believe it. Until I see them with my own eyes, I think it's all made up, this dolphin thing, honestly. So just remind people then, it is Port St Mary Lifeboat Day on Sunday. Where are most things happening and what's going on?
It's Port St Mary Lifeboat Day, Sunday on the Alfred Pier in Port St Mary. Gates open at 12:30. There will be our lifeboat there. I think Douglas is coming round, Port Erin will be round, inshore lifeboat as well. They'll all be alongside the quay, so you can come and walk through the boat, come and press buttons and see what things do. You can come and try the kit on. You can talk to the crew, and if you show the slightest bit of interest, we will try and recruit you, encourage you for a taster day, a taster little session, come out on the boat. There's loads of family activities as well. There's a lifeboat exhibition. And Tours Isle of Man have got 2 complimentary coaches coming down from Douglas and back again, so you can get down to Port St Mary for free on Sunday with Tours Isle of Man.
And I'm sure this day, as well as raising awareness, it's all about fundraising as well, because you do need to keep that money coming in. That's a huge part of it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I was reading somewhere today that it costs just over 400,000 a day to run the RNLI.
Wow.
When you think of the work and the importance of the work you do, it's incredible, really.
Yeah, and it's all funded by charity donations, and it's all run by 95% of people within the RNLI and are volunteers, whether it's crew or fundraisers or shore support. 95% are volunteers. And 400,000 a day. So there's a lot of bucket shaking to be done. But Lifeboat Day is one of those focal points to get people involved.